G'day guys, Dane here from Clarkey's Rugby League column. I've had the idea to do this for a while now where I was going to go through and sort of react to all the news as it first happens. I'm off work today, I've got a bit of a headache and a bit of a cold, so I figured I'll give it a start, see how it goes. This is all the news from yesterday. So it's sort of a trial run to see how it goes. But the intent is, if I have the time, that is, to sort of react to all the news on YouTube here and maybe dive a little bit more deeper into it. I've got all my socials down the bottom there. Facebook, I upload them on the story and on the feed, same as Instagram. TikTok, I read out all the news quickly because you can only do 3-minute videos there. I don't really use Twitter too much, so that leaves YouTube, which I haven't honestly touched in a few years. If you are a YouTube subscriber, maybe you remember from a few years ago stuff I was doing, but it's something that I definitely have struggled for with consistency. And so I wanted to jump on in. So without further ado, guys, this is Clarkey Reacts from all the news from the 6th of September. And if you're watching this, thanks for being here. I don't expect too many people to watch this. It's more of a trial run, but here goes. So the first bit of news we had yesterday, guys, was Lachlan Elias re-signing with the South Sydney Rabbitohs until the end of 25. That was via the NRL website. Now, there's not really too much to discuss here. This just makes sense, right? There's no other sort of young halfbacks or any other veteran halfbacks at the club, no halfbacks at all, that are really pushing him to take that 7 jumper off him. The end of 2025, so that's a 3-year deal. I'm not too shocked by this. I think it's smart by Souths. He has shown enough potential this year. Well, let's say they've re-signed him, I'd imagine, around 300, 350k. It wouldn't be too much. It'd be, his next deal from his rookie contract, realistically, that it's not really a risk to anyone. Even if he does start playing poor or a veteran comes on the market and you prefer to sign them, he's not soaking up a massive chunk of your cap, and you will need a backup half. So at worst, you've got a backup half there with experience on cheap coin. But I do think throughout those 3 years, he will probably remain the Rabbitohs halfback unless something happens there. So the end of 2025, it gives him security, South security. The other key point in all of this, and it's actually not really relevant to the Lachlan Ilias himself, Braithen Astor. Now, he is Lachlan Ilias' manager and Cameron Munster's manager. He only manages 2 players. So now that he's secured the future of Lachlan Ilias, I would think that gives his attention fully to Cameron Munster. And so maybe we do see some more developments on his future, where he might be going, whether that's re-signing with the Storm or whether it's heading to the Dolphins. So yeah, there we go. That's all for that news, guys. Let's move on. The other bit of news was Isaiah Papalii, the Eels back row, has topped the VB Hard-Earned Index leaderboard back-to-back because he did win the award in 2021, if you guys remember. The VB Hard-Earned Index, I believe it's a Channel 9 run sponsorship with VB. What it essentially is a metric or an algorithm that combines all of the hard work, such as meters, tackles, offloads, tries, etc., and puts it all into an algorithm. If you're missing, making errors or missing tackles, you lose points. And so he's topped that 2 years in a row. Not too much to chat about here, guys. It's just the sort of classy player he is, right? I mean, I certainly looked at his season last year in 2021 and thought that's probably his peak. And you could almost argue that if he hasn't gotten better, he's without a doubt sustained this. Now, from here where it gets interesting is, does he take that form to the Tigers? Because for me, Papalii is the sort of player where he's not like a back rower like Dave Fafita, where he needs to be brought into the game via great tactics from your halfback or nice line runs, giving him time and space. Papalii can do that. He can run those nice lines on the edge, and when Mitchell Moses, Dylan Brown are setting him up, we see how devastating he can be. But he's also the sort of player where if it's not happening, he'll just go into the middle and have a hit up. He'll stay busy. In defense, he's not sort of hiding out on the edge as a back rower. He's still getting busy in the middle and then, coming out to his edge as required. And so I do see this form going across to the Tigers next year. I'm not too sure how much it really helps the Tigers with where they're at. But, I mean, if you're the West Tigers, assuming he is going, I mean, there's so many rumors that he is, he isn't, it's only a positive for the Tigers. So Tigers fans should be very excited with his acquisition. This is probably the most controversial news and one that I'm probably going to put in the headline of this video because I'm sure a lot of people want to hear me talk about this, or if not me, that they want to talk about this in general. Taylan May, the Panthers winger, he is free to play the NRL finals, guys, despite being found guilty of assault occasioning bodily harm in court. Instead, he will be suspended 2 games, but that will carry over to the 2023 season. He's also been fined $7,500, 50% of which has been suspended. So that comes down to a $3,700 fine, plus a $1,000 fine from the government. From the court, plus a $1,000 payment to the victim. So all up, this incident cost him $5,750. But that's not what we're here to talk about, right? We're here to talk about whether the 2 games make sense to have them suspended now or next year. Now, there's 2 different ways you can look at this, and I saw Paul Kent was quite animated with this on NRL 360 last night. On the left side, we have, okay, well, the court got delayed, and it's just poor timing that now it's come out. Now he's been found guilty at such a crucial time, so it's not fair to suspend him. In argument to that, I would say it's not fair to assault someone under any circumstances, and so if you do the crime, you do the time, regardless of when that happens to be in an NRL season. The other question mark I've got is the 2 games. Because we've got Lindsay Collins, and this is an example from NRL 360 last night. We've got Lindsay Collins on the sidelines for 4 weeks for a hip drop tackle, which was an accident in a professional sanctioned game of rugby league. Now, Taylan May has received half of this for assault occasioning bodily harm, where he grabbed someone and slammed him sort of on the ground at a pub from behind. So, does that seem fair to you guys? Am I reading the room wrong here? 2 weeks for assaulting someone, but 4 weeks for an accident on the field? I don't know. It doesn't add up for me. Maybe I'm reading the room wrong here, but either way, this has never happened before. I certainly can't recall an incident where a player has been told, I'll just do the suspension another time. 2008, I think it was, Cameron Smith was suspended for the grand final. They lost 40-0. I'm not going to say the Storm would have won that grand final. They were over the salary cap anyway, but I mean, they certainly would have lost by 40. It would have been a great game if Cam Smith was there. He didn't get the chance to serve that suspension later in the year. Billy Slater was almost suspended for a shoulder charge on Sasai Feki. He did get off in the end, but he was missing the grand final. And so this is a new precedent, and it's opened a can of worms where, let's say a player is suspended this week for a high tackle. It's deemed as grade 2, therefore you must miss a game unless you fight it. We're going to have someone sidelined for an accidental, potentially high tackle on the footy field, whilst Taylan May is playing after being found guilty of assault. I think the NRL's opened a really big can of worms here. I would really appreciate if someone, and I'm sure all fans would, if someone from the NRL can sort of come out and explain why they made this decision, how it makes sense. Because I'm really confused. I've probably confused you guys even more talking about it and rambling on there, but that's how I feel about the situation. I think it's unfair. I think if you were suspended, regardless of when it is in the NRL season or when you committed, in this case, the crime, you're still suspended. You don't get to pick and choose when you serve your suspension. And if you do have a big problem with, okay, well, the court delayed it, it's just unfortunate timing that it came out at this stage, well, don't do the crime to begin with, and you're not in this situation. So that's my take on that one, guys. Probably the most controversial one of yesterday. Tyson Campbell has signed a 2-year deal with the Newcastle Knights. This is via the Knights website, so this one's fully official. I like this one. I think he's shown a lot of promise throughout his time at the Broncos, whether that's at halfback or 5'8". He's shown he can sort of be the main man and call the shots, as well as a bit of a craftier playmaker, picking and choosing when he pops up. And for the Knights, they've really got nothing to lose. Current halves at the club: Phoenix Crossland, Adam Clune, Jake Clifford, Simi Sasagi potentially can play in the halves there. And Anthony Milford's leaving. And so you look at where they came this year. It was bottom 4, I believe. And it just didn't work. It just doesn't work with Adam Clune. It doesn't work with Jake Clifford. So to go out to the market and sign someone like Tyson Campbell who's available, I really like it. What this means for the Broncos is Ezra Mam is really locked into that 6 jersey, I would imagine, next year. They're really going to commit a whole preseason to him and Adam Reynolds together and building that partnership. But what it means for the Knights is, I think he has to come into their 17. I think you've got to have Tyson Campbell in there in the halves. I'd probably be looking to play him at halfback and Jake Clifford at 5'8". Or the other option would be, of course, Adam Clune at halfback and Gamble at 5'8". I would prefer a combo of Clifford and Gamble. No knock on Adam Clune, but all his best work throughout his career so far has been done in New South Wales Cup. A few years ago, he led that competition in try assist. The potential's there. It just hasn't fully translated to the NRL just yet. So Whether you guys agree or disagree, I think Tyson Campbell has to be there in the 17 in some capacity next year. Probably don't like him too much at 14, but if that's what it comes down to, I'd definitely get him in the side somehow, some way. Really interesting one here, guys. So John Bateman, the former Raiders back row, and of course the Dally M medalist, the Dally M back rower of the year. My apologies there. Now, when Elliot Whitehead was at the Media Day to launch finals, he brought up his phone, pointed to it, and said, John Bateman has told me to tell you guys he's keen for an NRL return. So the questions start to raise with, where can he go? The first club we hear that are interested is the Tigers. And I don't like this at all. Because if I'm the Tigers, I don't want a huge chunk of my salary cap taken up in back rowers with Bateman and with Isaiah Papalii. You look at all the premiership teams in the last 10 years, they haven't had world-class back rowers on huge money. Now, I know you look at the Roosters at a time there when they had Sonny Bill, Boyd Cordner, and maybe that's an exception. But I mean, you look at the Panthers last year, they had Kurt Capewell on a cheap deal, and Viliami Kikau on a deal that, well, obviously they can't afford it anymore because they've lost him and they lost Kurt Capewell. So what that says to me is they could not afford, with a premiership winning squad, to have two back rowers on big money. In this instance, the Tigers are going to have to pay big money for John Bateman, and they're going to have to pay big money. Well, they are paying big money for Isaiah Papalii. The interesting part with John Bateman as well to consider here is Wigan want a transfer fee from an NRL club of, I believe, $300,000, and the Tigers have just spent big money on a new, a new facility, a brand new facility, which set them back millions. So another $300K. Is it worth it? I don't think so, because I don't think the Tigers are in a position to succeed. And if I'm John Bateman, I'm definitely not interested in leaving the Super League and coming to the NRL to help a struggling squad. Where do I see John Bateman landing? And where would I like to see him land? Let's answer that. Melbourne Storm. We see this so much, right? When Cooper Cronton left, when Brandon Smith left, they went to an elite squad in the Roosters. Elite players don't want to leave elite systems to go play for struggling teams. You know, we didn't see Cooper Cronton leave and sign for the Tigers. When Latrell Mitchell left the Roosters, the Tigers offered him more money. We didn't see him go there. We don't see players leave the Roosters and want to sign with my Titans, for example. It's quite rare. They want to go to another winning system unless they're at the end of their career. With sort of the Isaac Liu example there. John Bateman's not at the end of his career. He's still playing fantastic footy. The Melbourne Storm are losing a ton of forwards next year. Off the top of my head, we've got Jesse Bromwich, Kenny Bromwich, and Felice Carfusi. 3 big losses. They have signed Tarek Sims. Now, if I'm the Storm, I am saying to John Bateman, look, we're going to pay the $300,000 transfer fee. You are coming, and we are going to win a premiership. We're not going to offer you $1 million like a struggling side might. We're going to offer you $500,000. But you're going to win the premiership. We believe with you in our roster, we can compete for the premiership this year. You will plug a key gap in back rowers that we are losing, which we have shown we can win the premiership with in previous years. And so I think that's really something John Bateman will have to consider. Ultimately, guys, I don't see him going to a struggling side. I could only see John Bateman returning to the NRL to a winning side. Could we see him return to the Raiders? Potentially. They are losing Adam Elliott, but they did have him on a very cheap deal. They just upgraded Joseph Tarpany. Hudson Young, I believe, re-signed earlier this year. I don't think they've got the cap space, and I don't think... If I'm the Raiders and he does return, I'm kind of like, well, man, we paid a $300,000 transfer fee for you already, and you left your deal early. We're going to pay it again, and you might leave again early? Like, no, thank you. So I think Storm are the most likely destination there. More re-signing news, guys. The Tigers officially re-signed Joe Offahen-Galwi until the end of 2025. I love this. He has been in superb form this year. He's probably someone that's been criticised a lot when he went to the Tigers because his form has been down in recent seasons. Now, we do see this trend kind of in the NRL, guys, where players that are leaving or on the last year of their contracts suddenly play really good footy. I hope that's not the case here for Joe Offahen-Galwi. I hope he's able to continue this form moving forward because he has been exceptional. He is in my team of the year, team of the years. I'm not sure where I had him. Let me double check this. But basically every single week I've been updating a first, second, and third team. And by showing you guys this, it's actually not released yet. So I probably shouldn't be doing that. Where did I have him? He actually dropped out in the last round, sorry. He dropped out in the last round for Tino Suomala-Awi, but Joel Fahengawi has been absolutely superb this year. I can't say enough positive things about him. He is my unsung hero of the year, and that was a call I made on the Andy Raymond podcast, and I stand by it. He has carried the Tigers on multiple times this year, leading them in hit-ups, tackles, and metres gained. Simply not good enough by the rest of the forwards, but unreal by Big Joe. England are set to select Dominic Young in their World Cup squad. How we know this is his coach, Adam O'Brien, at the night said, "I know he's been picked in the England squad and he thoroughly deserves that." Now, this is interesting because I do believe earlier this year, Dom Young came out and said he wants to play for Jamaica in the World Cup. He has Jamaican heritage through his parents, and he's also eligible for England as I believe he was born there. Really, really tough decision here for Dom Young because if he does play for Jamaica, they're probably not going to win too many games at the World Cup. Definitely not going to play finals. But if he does play for England, he's almost certain to make it to some form of the finals, right? The last World Cup we had, England lost to Australia 6-0 in the grand final. So they're not too far off the pace, right? A classy winger like Dom Young, I believe he will start for England, but I don't watch enough Super League to confidently tell you that 100%. But big decision for Dom Young. Do you represent your heritage, or do you take a shot at winning the World Cup in your first full season of NRL? I'd probably be more inclined to play for England if I was him, but if he does play for Jamaica, you can't knock that either. It'd be simply incredible for him and his family to see him run out in that jersey for, I believe, Jamaica's debut at the World Cup. Buzz Rothfield has slammed the Tigers for damaging the coaching career of Brett Kamali. He says they've thrown him the worst hospital pass in the history of rugby league. I don't agree with this take from Buzz because Brett Kamali agreed to it. No one held a gun to Brett's head and said, "Sign the contract. You're our coach or else." He chose to take over. He chose to take a risk. And he was under no illusion. It's not as if when Brett Kamali signed with the Tigers, they had LeBron James, Tiger Woods, and Conor McGregor on their books, right? He knew the exact roster he was inheriting. It was a shamble. They had three halves in Dewey, Brooks, and Hastings. Didn't fit into the squad. He had to debut young players such as Fanua Pole, Austin Diaz, Tom Fairbairn, Junior Pa'algu, and there was a few others which I can't think of names. So he was in a challenging position, and he knew it was going to be challenging. Furthermore to that, I don't think many NRL clubs were sort of looking at Brett Kamali and thinking, yeah, he's our next assistant coach or he's our next head coach. So I think he'll go back to coaching the women's game like he has been doing, which, as we have been shown in recent years, it's a good stepping stone, coaching in New South Wales Cup, men's or females, reserve grade, etc., to step up into an assistant coach in the NRL or the NRLW. So I disagree with Buzz. I don't think it's hurt his coaching credentials too much. Let's say I'm a team. I want to sign Brett Kamali. Brett comes in for the meeting. Hey, Brett, we want to discuss why you didn't win more games with the Tigers when you had this roster and you came in at the middle of the year after the other coach had been sacked and you were told to debut young players. Why weren't you winning? Seems unfair, right? So I've got to disagree with that take. Jack Murchie. It was announced earlier, or late last week rather, that the Warriors would not be re-signing him. They let go of 15 players, so I expect the Warriors to have a little bit of room in the salary cap to play around and sign some veterans, some role players, and maybe some young guns. Maybe not some star players, but definitely the three that I mentioned there. Now the Dragons have come in. They're interested in Jack Murchie. I like this a lot. I think Jack Murchie's a good player. I don't think he's going to be an elite back rower anytime in the next 5 years. But he's the sort of guy where your roster's not any worse for having him in it. He's not going to soak up a massive amount of salary cap. They are losing Josh Maguire and a few other forwards, so I like it. I can't see how this is a negative for anyone besides the Warriors, who I would have re-signed him. I would have offered a 1 or 2 year deal. I wouldn't have let him walk. I think he's shown enough potential that he was worth re-signing. But if that's the decision they've gone down, then this could be a great, great win for the Dragons. So, Dragons, jump on it. I like it. This report here, guys, I mean, we got to talk about this, but let me just read it first. Reports suggest the Dolphins have already reached out to see if Tom and Jake Trbojevic are available following reports of unrest at Manly yesterday, and this was via Fox Sports. Don't read into this at all, guys. I mean, on Channel 9 News last night, Tom Trbojevic had an interview with Daily Cherries where he said he loves the club. He's always going to be committed to the club. So, and I mean, let's say worst case, right? Tom Trbojevic wakes up today. He hates the Seagulls. I want to sign with the Dolphins. Manly really... I mean, they've got him locked in on a 5-year deal. Same for Jake. Under no circumstances would Manly release him. And so the report may be correct. Maybe the Dolphins rang in and said, hey, what's going on? Are you guys available? To them, a third party, to the club. But to what avail? I mean, you're wasting your time and resources there, Dolphins, I suppose. Never hurts to ask the question, so I'm certainly not against them doing it. But it just seems like it is wasting time and resources there. So I probably would have done it in their position. I mean, imagine if you were able to sign them, or imagine if they did become available and you didn't ask the question. But I don't think we're going to see the Turbo brothers leave Manly anytime soon, that's for certain. That brings us around the league. That was all the news from yesterday, guys. That was my first thoughts, reactions. I suppose this one is a little different to future ones because I had a whole day to think on it. My headache was just so bad yesterday that I couldn't get the video out. But there you go. That's me talking about all the news from yesterday. And I suppose it's still relevant even if you are watching it today. But thanks for tuning in for the pilot episode of Clarkey Reacts. Appreciate you guys being here. I'm not too sure what to say. I guess I'm sorry for the background. I'm sorry for the camera quality. The overlays are a bit crap. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to do this consistently. I really want to. And this is all, it's a D grade setup. But I appreciate you guys being here regardless. In the future, I've got my parents-in-law having to move in soon as they're selling their house, so they'll be staying in this space. So I don't know where I'll record this in the future, but when I did build this, well, this was a studio. You can't really see from the thing, but I built a studio in my shed to make it sort of a recording room and a podcast studio for this sort of stuff. So it's nice to finally get around to it, even though I'll have to look at changing it in the future. But that's okay. We'll cross that bridge as we get to it, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I mean, if you still hear this in me ramble, I can only say that I appreciate it a lot. I love this stuff. I love footy. I love you guys that support me and watch this stuff. And it just means a lot to me. It really does. So thank you so much for being here, guys. The socials down below. If you don't want to listen to me ramble, as I said, Facebook, Instagram, I'm going to upload it there in slides so you can quickly slide through. TikTok, quick 3-minute video if you're more of a listener than a reader. And YouTube. Oh my God, why is this so hard to do? This way. Down. There. YouTube. Obviously, you're watching it now. Thanks, guys. I'll see you all again. Probably later today, actually, with the news from the Savo. So I'll see you then. And thanks for tuning in.